guys, welcome to Proverbs on the Patio, chapter 4. We're going to dig in, begin reading in just a second. Before we do, I want to remind you of some things that I shared in today's email. If you don't get those emails, you can click the link in the description and subscribe so you can know what's going on with our church. Many of you know we had an outdoor service about 2 weeks ago, and we are going to be moving toward outdoor services. That looks to be our future. There are mask restrictions and requirements and mandates in our state, and we don't want to be the mask police. We don't want to put anybody in that position. Masks are encouraged but not required at outdoor services, and so we aren't required to hold you to that. And so you can make that choice. And outdoor, man, things just look safer outdoors. And so we are in the process of getting a large event tent put on our property so that we can have shade and then also cover if there were any rain in the forecast. And so we're moving towards an outdoor service plan for our church. Now, here's the deal. We're going to do one at the end of this month in July. Might be a little warm, but with the shade in the early morning, it should be fine. We'll do another in August, and then hopefully by September, the weather should be a little more ideal, and we're going to be doing some different things for kids. And so we're moving back towards what we might consider normal or what we used to do, but not with the intention of just getting back to normal. I want to remind you guys, I said it Sunday, I believe this is an opportunity for everybody to make changes that need to be made. So if you, like me, want to come out of this season, out of COVID, out of this disruption to our lives, stronger, more alive, spiritually closer to the Lord, I believe that Bible study is going to be a key component for that. Now, not just Bible study for Bible study's sake. I know a lot of Christians who know the Word, but don't live it. I want to challenge you as we jump into Proverbs chapter 4, not just to know the Word, not just to memorize Scripture, but to live it out. And actually, that's something that we're going to talk about in Proverbs chapter 4. So with that being said, I'm going to jump in, and like every night, on these Proverbs on the Patio, I'm not going to read the whole chapter. I hope you've read it. Hope there are some passages that stuck out to you. I'm going to focus our attention on a few key verses, and really I want to focus a lot of my attention on the beginning. In verses 1 through 5, we see it said again and again that this is a father talking to a son, and I want to talk about the relationship here and why that matters. He says in verse 1, "Hear, you children, the instruction of a father, and attend to know understanding." A couple of things as we get started tonight. I want to talk specifically, first of all, to you men. All right, here is God's plan and God's ideal situation. Not that you abdicate and say, honey, you do the work of raising our kids. You do the work of spiritually raising our children. Now listen, we should work together as husband and wife. Absolutely. God's plan was always for dads to be involved. And something I'm afraid that I'm seeing over and over, not just in all our culture, but all across the world, is dads being less engaged with their children. God's plan was always for the dads to be engaged. As a matter of fact, in Hebrew tradition, and if you find a very traditional Hebrew element in your city, maybe a community or a neighborhood, you'll find this is still very active in their communities. The dads are responsible for the spiritual formation of the kids. It's not that the wives are not responsible, not that the husband and wife don't work together, but the dads are expected to raise the bar, to set the spiritual temperature in the home, and to teach their kids the Word. And God expects that of us. So the dads should not just be involved, they should be leading. So let me say this, dads. Hear me out. We as men should be setting the spiritual temperature in our home. It is so discouraging that most churches have something like around 60% of their attendance is women because men are disengaged with their faith. It's discouraging how many women are the responsible spiritual leader in their home and are dragging their husband to church. So dudes, I'm going to talk to you for a second. It is your responsibility not just to put bread on the table, not just to make money and then kick back on the weekend. We should be leading in our homes. Now, I want to admit some things. That's the ideal. That doesn't always happen. Some of you watching this video are single parents trying to do it on your own. I was raised by a single mother. I did not meet my father until I was 17 years old, graduating high school. Okay, so I know the ideal doesn't always happen. But if we can make the ideal happen, we should lead in that area. So moms, if you're watching this and there's not a spiritual dad in your home, look, you're going to have to take on some of those responsibilities. But notice this, hear you children, the instruction of a father, and attend to know understanding. He's kind of saying, hey, listen to me. Now, here's the struggle that a lot of us have. We don't all listen the same, all right? When I was in 6th grade, I had my first male teacher, and I had a struggle because I wouldn't make eye contact with him. And he thought it was because I didn't have a dad at home and I didn't respect men. Reality, I was listening, my grades were really good, and I loved doodling. And I am one of those people that have to be doing something with my hands while I listen. A lot of times when I'm preparing for messages, I struggle to read something. If I can put it on my phone and play it while I do something with my hands, I'm going to get a lot more out of it. I'm going to pay more attention. That's why I'm big into podcasting. And so this teacher, he and the principal and my mom and me got together and they began hashing out why Mark isn't listening. And finally, my mom, she said, I want to see his grades. And she got me into all kinds of trouble. She said, his grades are fine. She said, you just must not be too engaging of a teacher. So why don't you give him some more projects? So to this day, I can name you projects that I had to build this like little model Titanic, and I had to give a presentation to the class, and I was the only one giving a presentation because my mom had signed me up for more work because she was convinced that I just wasn't being stimulated because I was listening, but I wasn't paying attention with my eyes necessarily. So here's what I want to say first of all, I know that some of you when you're at church, you don't have your eyes wide open, just engaged the same way as maybe somebody else. We all listen differently. And as a pastor, I don't take it personally when people are looking down or they're listening. Some people are contemplating. Now, some of you are on your phone, and I know it. And it's, that's between you and the Lord. Like, you're going to be those people who go to church and spend the whole time on your phone. I don't know why you came, but you do it. It's fine. It's hard to do it now. So those of you who are actually engaged, we can see that you're actually engaged. That's fine. But we all listen differently. And here's what I want to get at. You need to get in a place where you can listen. I'll be real with you. Like I engage God's word more through my phone, listening to it played to me over headphones or ear pods, whatever, way more than I actually visually read these days. Because I can get so much more hours of listening to the scriptures, maybe while I'm exercising or while I'm driving. Guys, I want you to find a way to hear instruction and to listen to it, right? His point is, listen, take hold of this. Verse 2, for I give you good doctrine, forsake not my law. He said, this is good, guys. You need to get a hold of it. It's kind of like when your parents were talking to you and you were 13 and you didn't want to listen. Like, one day you're going to want to hear this. He's saying to his kids, you are going to want to hear this. And then he says in verse 3, this is where it gets personal. For I was my father's son, tender and only beloved in the sight of my mother. Solomon was one of 20 sons that King David fathered. All right? 19 of them lived. One of them died as an infant. And Solomon says, I was the favorite. And when my dad would talk to me, I would listen. He's saying, I'm not asking you to do something that I haven't already done. It's very important for parents to talk to their children. I'm just going to be real with you. This whole season has been super discouraging for a lot of our leaders in our church. They go through a lot of trouble. And look, we know that everybody is busy and it is super difficult right now. But one of the issues that many children, many families, many parents, many churches have is too many people think it's the church's responsibility to raise children spiritually. Guys, there are 168 hours in your child's week. At best, we might see your child in a regular scenario for an hour or an hour and a half on a weekend. Possibly if you go to a small group where there are other kids engaged, 2.5, 3 hours a week, your kid is involved in the church's spiritual formation. Your child is going to be as close to the Lord as the effort you put into raising your kids spiritually. Now, they're going to have a free will. They're going to make their own decisions. But I want you to hear me say this, parents. Everything starts and falls at the home level. Now, the other issue we have is I thought I was busy when I was 15. I was on 2 sports teams. I had 4.5 hours of practices after school, and I thought I was busy. I coached high school soccer a few years back in Suffolk, Virginia. And we would have 3-hour practice every day on our one soccer team. And I had kids that were in AP classes. They literally got 6 hours of sleep every night. And then there were other kids who were not only on the high school soccer team, they were on the club traveling team. And so I know that we live in a world where your kids sometimes are busier than we are as adults. It's crazy how much they have going on. And if we aren't careful, we will fail to instruct them in spiritual wisdom, in the knowledge of the Lord, in faith, belief, Jesus, his offer of salvation, because we are so busy making sure they're on every team and have every class. And these things are important, but let's make sure we have our priorities right. And so we see here that Solomon says, look, I'm doing for you what my dad did for me. I hope you have a spiritual heritage of someone caring for you to share the word with you. My mother was not just passionate and attended every one of my high school sports games. She also made sure that I was in church, talked with me about the Lord, spiritual things, read the Bible with me. Those are important. He goes on to say, verse 4, he taught me also and said unto me, let your heart retain my words, keep my commandments and live. He said, I'm saying the same thing to you that my dad said to me. Hold on to this. Verse 5, get wisdom. There's the undertone here in the language of the Hebrew text of kind of a commercial getting, like go purchase this in bulk, go get a hold of this. This is important. This is worth getting. Get wisdom, get understanding. Forget it not, neither decline from the words of my mouth. More than I want your kid to be the superstar. And look, I love attending sporting events where our kids are doing well. Like I'm one of those guys. If I'm attending your kid's sporting event, I'm probably going to embarrass them. I'm cheering for them so loud, right? Like I love it. I want your kid to be the valedictorian. I want them to do well. I want them to excel in every area of their life. But listen to me. I want your child to have wisdom. And I think you know what I'm talking about here. There's this worry that sometimes we can have, like, man, I do all these things. Is my kid going to get it? Are they going to succeed in life? And really he's saying, David said to Solomon's now saying to his kids, guys, you're going to have money. You're going to have opportunities. You're the king's kids, but I want more than anything for you to have wisdom. Wisdom is where it's at. Get wisdom, guys. There are billions of people on this planet trying to get money, trying to get sex, trying to get popular, trying to get viral, trying to get out there and make theirs. And Solomon says, guys, get wisdom. It'll last longer. I've been in some conversations with some pastors recently, and I'm just going to be real with you. They are discouraged. We as pastors in general, I'm very encouraged right now. It doesn't make any sense. I know, but like, I really believe we're going to come out of this stronger as a church. I absolutely believe that many of you are going to be stronger Christians after this than you were before, and I hope that we can spark a revival and a spiritual renewal in our community. I don't know the underpinnings and the underlying, I don't know all of the results that are going to happen. I'm sure economically and of course physically, like there are all kinds of repercussions coming down the road, but I promise you, when these things happen, this is fertile ground for God to get a hold of people's hearts. So I'm actually encouraged, but I was talking with a pastor who's discouraged, and he just said point blank, he's like, I'm just afraid that we have worked so hard. When he began pastoring the church he's at, there's about 30 people there, and they have spent the last 15 years rebuilding and finally, getting things in place. They're seeing people saved, seeing people baptized. They grew, and now they have to have 2 services. But now he's really discouraged. He's like, man, are we going to lose all the effort, all the work that we've put in for the last 15 years? And I wanted to encourage him with this idea that, like, here's the thing. We can lose 15 years of work. Most of you know I put a lot of work into my house. When we bought our house, our backyard was a forest of just weeds. It was trash. We rebuilt the kitchen, rebuilt the bathroom. I'm not a handyman, but I can figure stuff out with YouTube videos and help from my friends. And my father-in-law is an electrician, and my dad is a handyman. My stepdad, I call him dad now because he's been my dad for like 20 years. Like, he helps me with all kinds of stuff. So we have rebuilt this place, right? And we're like 6 or 7 years in. I love this house. Don't get me wrong. Not in the wrong, I don't idolize it, but I know if this house burns down, yeah, all that work is gone, but the wisdom's not. You feel me? Y'all see what I'm saying? Like, I know how to do stuff now that I didn't know how to do 7 years ago. I know that though the work may have disappeared, there's wisdom and understanding that I have now I didn't have then. Let's make it spiritual. So you get saved, you start growing in the Word, you start growing spiritually, and then you hit this, you hit this wall, and spiritually you can't overcome. Maybe it's a sin you're wrestling with. Maybe it feels like you're going backwards, and you feel like you're losing hope, losing strength. And what I want you to understand is, like, these seasons of difficulty can rob us sometimes of years of pain, of tears, of crying out and prayer, but they cannot, right, rob us of wisdom unless we allow them to. And so what Solomon's saying here is, like, guys, good times and bad times are coming. Take hold of wisdom. Take hold of knowledge. Don't just float through life hoping whatever happens, happens. Like, no. Pay attention and get wisdom. So wisdom is, and then in verse 7, I love this. This is like the one I've got circled in my Bible here. Wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore, get wisdom. He's saying it again. And with all thy getting, get understanding. Knowledge is important. Data is important. We need good data for making decisions as it relates to COVID. As it relates to church and opening the church. We need good wisdom, good data, good information as it relates to making decisions for our church in a regular season. But wisdom helps you take the data, take the information, and make wise decisions that bless others, that encourage people, that lead to growth, not loss, that lead you closer not only to the Lord spiritually, but to this idea of blessing. Because here's what most people are trying to get: happiness, right? Everybody wants happiness. I want to do what makes me feel good. I want happiness. And we know we have a lot of people who want to get happiness. And Solomon says wisdom is actually better than happiness. And he's going to talk about that here as well. Verse 13, jump down there with me. Take fast hold of instruction. Let her not go. Keep her, for she is thy life. There is some humility being talked about here. It takes humility to take instruction. When someone pulls me aside and says, Mark, you need help, my pride says, no, I don't. Who are you? I know what I'm doing. Humility always receives instruction well. And Solomon knows that pride is the opposite of humility, and pride leads to destruction. Pride leads to difficulty and heartache. And so how do we take fast hold of instruction? We take hold of humility. That's the idea here. Let her not go. Keep her, for she is your life. Enter not into the path of the wicked. Go not into the way of evil men. Avoid it. Pass not by it. Turn from it and pass away. All right? He says, take hold of instruction. Let go of people who are leading you astray. Pride and humility is an underlying idea and theme there. Let's jump on to verse 18. But the path of the just is as a shining light that shines more and more unto the perfect day. It's the idea that it's something that's so good when you have wisdom and you're walking in the path of righteousness. It's actually attractive. It shines. People notice it. And they're like, man, I wish I could be more like you. I wish I could have the joy that you have. I wish I could have the kindness that you have. By the way, spiritually, the fruit of the Spirit is so attractive. It should be sweet as fruit. It should be something that is growing in our lives and drawing people not to us, but say, what is different about you? And we say that the Holy Spirit has transformed my heart and my life. Verse 19, the way of the wicked is as darkness. They know not at what they stumble. They don't even know why they're doing it. It's kind of like we can see what's going on. Like, dude, you're doing the same thing again, expecting different results. That's nuts. And they don't get it. They don't see it because they're walking in the dark over and over and over. He says, I want you to walk in a lighted pathway that is not just light so you can see. It's attractive, all right? I was out working in my yard last night, and I had a little headlight on so I could see what I was doing while I was working on a project. And dude, bugs were just flocking to me. It was nuts. I had to slap my face. Why? Because light is attractive. When you set up lights, and people are like, what's that? What's going on? Bugs, same way, like when you have a lighted path, it's attractive. Verse 23, and this is the key of it all. Proverbs 4 and verse 23. Keep your heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. Solomon says, look, everything I've told you is important. Get wisdom, but your heart is where it starts and what matters most. We're not talking about your physical flesh beating heart. We're talking about something deeper, something more than just your mind. This is more the idea of your heart and soul, the core of who you are, the decisions that you make, your character. Your wisdom flows out of that. Your life flows out of that. So how do we protect our heart? Well, we have to understand the battle for our heart that's going on right now. And I know I've gone a little long tonight, but I want to lay some things out for you. We are living in a world that wants nothing more than your heart and soul. Most of you that are watching live in the United States of America, and right now, there are two platforms, two political parties that want your heart and soul more than anything. They want you to bleed blue or bleed red. They want you to vote blue and vote red, and they want you to do everything you can to spread their information on Facebook because that's what matters most. They want your heart and soul. We live in a world where companies have gotten very good at trying to get our heart and soul through marketing, through Facebook, man, through ads, through paying attention to what you do, even listening in on our conversations. These things happen, man, and they want your heart and soul. Why? So they can get some money from you. The political parties want power from you. Marketing companies want money from you. There are even people, individuals, who would love to use you by getting in at your heart and soul, inserting themselves into your life when they have some ulterior motive. We live in a world where we are surrounded by words, media, videos, stories, truth, false stories, facts and untruths, all trying to get our heart and soul. And if we aren't careful, we will let idols, things that are not God, take our heart and soul. Stupid things sometimes, things that don't matter. Good things sometimes, things that do matter, but we've misplaced. By the way, idols in the Old Testament, we always think like, well, I don't have an idol in my home that I'm worshiping. No, most of you don't have a false god on your shelf that you're like, oh, I believe in you. No, what most of us do is we just take God and we move him down 2 or 3 rungs and put this thing in its place, in his place. Money, sex, people, even good things. And God desires to be the main thing. And he says, protect your heart. Sometimes even good things can lead our heart astray, can lead us to make unwise decisions that affect us for the rest of our lives. Certainly bad things, illicit relationships, you name the thing, if it takes your heart and soul and it isn't the Lord, it's kind of like this. Things that we create, they break down. They don't last. Every human civilization has said, we are it. We're going to last forever because we have figured it out. Man-made stuff doesn't last. That's why half the things I do with my hands, I've got to go back and fix it later. Like the things we build, they deteriorate. It's the second law of thermodynamics. It's one of the basic principles of the universe, right? Everything gets worse with time, but God is the opposite because he's not bound by time, space. Like he's outside of it because he created all this. So God says, like, I want to have your heart and soul. I want to be the center of your universe because I don't degrade or let down or slowly die or slowly rob you of life itself. I'm the reverse. Jesus says, I came that you might have life more abundantly, because I'm not a man-made idea, a man-made theory. I'm not something that if you put all of your hope and faith in, I'll let you down. I'm something better. I'm the thing. So your heart has to be guarded. How do I know when something wants my heart and soul? That's a good question. Anything is capable of taking our heart and soul, like being the thing we think about and idolize. It could be money. And I'll be honest with you guys, I've talked with you before, like I struggle with materialism, like worrying too much about money. When you grow up poor, you always think about stuff. And so I'm way more careful than I probably should be, way more conservative financially than I probably should be because I was raised poor. And if I'm not careful, I'll put my faith and hope in how much money we have in the bank and how do our reserves look and how's our income looking and have we ever overspent or whatever. And God says, I want to do more and give you more security than money ever could. Paul talked in 1 Timothy about those who put their security and faith and hope in money and how insecure money is. And guys, the stock market this year and every year always shows us there is no security in money. And even bigger ideas than money, you think about politics and the swinging pendulum of politics from the far left to the far right. You think your team's winning, you think your guys are winning. They're going to lose. They're going to do something to screw it up. They're going to get in power and overstep. It just happens. And so people are so excited for 4 years, for 8 years, for 16 years. Then, what's happened to my country? What's happened? Guys, let something deeper and richer rule your heart and soul than the current politics, than the issues surrounding us, trying their best to get a hold of our heart and say, Jesus, you have my heart, you have my soul. I trust you. I'm a sojourner in this world. My home is eternity. It's bigger and deeper than this world could ever be. And while I'm here, I'm going to be a good citizen. I'm going to love my neighbor. I'm going to share the gospel. I'm going to bring joy, peace, kindness, patience, humility wherever I go. But my hope is not rooted in this world, in this house, in this body, in this flesh. They're all breaking down. They're all going to fade away one day. My hope is in something deeper, richer, fuller. And Solomon says, guard your heart. Guys, the world is upside down right now because most of the things that people have put their hope and faith in are letting them down. We have just determined that modern science can fix anything, and it is amazing the things we can do. Like, I am super grateful for all of the advances that have saved people in my family, that have helped me and my wife. Like, I would never, but here's the deal. Even modern science is having trouble with our current situation. We have to realize that our heart and soul are at stake here. Put your heart and soul, put your faith in something that matters, that lasts, that's richer, that's deeper, that's fuller than something we make, something we do. Guys, I love you. I'm praying for you. I hope this study's been beneficial to you. I can't wait to see you guys at our outdoor service on July 26th at 9:30 in the morning. We're having team night, July 17th. That's for all the individuals in our church who give of themselves and serve regularly. You guys know team night's incredible. We give big gifts to our serve teams, and we're generous with them. It's going to be a little different this year. We offer childcare and we have dinner. Team night this year is going to be a little different because we can't offer childcare in the current COVID restrictions. A meal together is a little difficult too, so we're going to have some snacks and some food and some fun, and it's just going to be different how we serve it and protect each other. But we're going to have a good time celebrating those who have served relentlessly through a difficult season. We love our teams. We love our church. We love you. We're praying for you. Guys, have a fantastic Wednesday night, and I'll see you online this Sunday, and I'll see you again online the following Sunday, and then on July 26th, we will be in person outdoors under a big, cool tent with a little bit of a breeze because y'all know it's windy on our property. We'll see you guys there. Love you. Praying for you. Have a blessed night.